going on, guys? It's Yugi Bros. I know it's been a long time, and this month's gonna be a little rocky. We're actually moving, so once that happens, hopefully it'll be a lot smoother. We're actually gonna start doing live duels. I know it's been forever since YouTube in general has done live duels. I know that was like a big thing in the early 2010s. We're gonna try to bring that back for speed duels, in addition to doing our normal coverage as always. I wanted to talk today about the new, it's not a speed ban list, rather it's like a limited section list, but there's no good name for it right now. So we'll go with the new speed list that goes into effect later this month at the YCS. They didn't change too much, and yet I'd still say it changed a lot, and so I'll go through the options here and the things that have changed, and then we'll talk about what my thoughts are and other things going forward. So, starting with the cards that went to 1, or on the limit 1 section, where you can only run one of the 4 cards in section 1 here, we have Jinzo, Reinforcements of the Army, Nightmare Wheel, and Zone of the Spirit. This is exactly the same except for Nightmare Wheel, which was Foolish Burial, and this right here was Nightmare Wheel, so they've kind of flip-flopped. And otherwise, both these sections remain the same, but let's talk about the one-ofs first. Jinzo still makes complete sense. You play more than one of this card's just broken in its own right. Reinforcements of the Army, there's too many things that you can cycle through in this game to get, with that being at more than 1. Nightmare Wheel was kind of a problem. It's funny because Zone of the Spirit was always the big problem card, and the fact that like it did too much damage for 4,000 life points. But then when Nightmare Wheel went to the 2 list and this went to the 1 list, it almost just became a staple 1 of if you weren't playing these or the Foolish, and this was a staple 2 of in almost everything, just because it slows an opponent down and does 500 to them every turn, and that 500 can definitely turn the tide of the game. Putting this to 1, it's actually quite interesting. A friend and I had been playtesting a lot of speed duels recently, and we both agreed that Foolish and Wheel literally should have swapped places. And then this list came out the next day, so it was like Konami was listening to us all along. But yeah, Wheel, it's just, so when you get the option to play that, if you're not playing the other 2 of cards, the Parasite, the Cocoon, the Allure, and the Hanger, you would just play the 2 wheels in anything. And it limited deck creativity, but it also just it cheapened the game, so to speak, with the burn damage that it could do. So nice to see that at 1 now. Now you have to choose between Zoma and Wheel if you're going that route. And definitely specific decks will take one over the other, so it's nice to see that. The 2 list, like I said, is also the same. Cocoon of Ultra Evolution, the skill. We have that down here. And this is the errata version. We have Parasite Paranoid, which is still here as well. We have Allure of Darkness. We now have Foolish Burial in the place of where Wheel used to be, and we have Union Hanger. Still completely agree with Parasite and Cocoon being where they are. It's a nice way to balance those without making them too broken for the format. Allure is like the perfect example of a card that probably should be at 2 right now, just because of its ability to draw deeper into the deck. Foolish Burial to 2, now this is interesting because now you have to choose between the ability of having 2 Allure, 2 Foolish, or in the case of XYZ, for example, 2 Hanger and 2 Foolish. Now you can only do 2 or 0 or 2 or 0 or 1 and 1 of each. So it's funny because I'm messing around with XYZ, I look at this list first and I'm like, oh cool, they get another Foolish. Then you think about it and you're like, no, Hanger's on the 2 of list as well, and you can only play 2 of anything in combination of these 5 cards. So unfortunately, you're gonna either have to go 2-0 or 1 and 1, and most likely it's gonna be 2-0 because this card is just literally the deck. So Foolish actually helps some decks here and hurts some other decks here, but I do like the synergy. I also find it interesting, but any Turbo Dark deck that would normally play 2 and 1 of this with like a Destiny or Malicious package or something is now limited to either doing a 1 and 1 or a 2 and 0 or a 2 and 0 and something like that. So a lot more creativity to look forward there, but the big part of this list is obviously the things at 3. So going through this, Breaker was already here at 3, DD Warrior Lady was already here at 3, Book of Moon was already here at 3, Cosmic Cyclone was already here at 3. The 3 new additions are Cyber Dragon, Crystal Raigeki, and Floodgate Trap Hole. Now going through these options, Breaker, it makes perfect sense when talking about cards that you could just throw in conceivably any deck and have them be very powerful options, that being Breaker, DD Warrior Lady, Book of Moon, Cosmic Cyclone. The same goes for Floodgate Trap Hole, which is just Trap Book of Moon, and obviously it's not as strong. It has to be when the monster is summoned, but it does keep it permanently face down. And Cyber Dragon kind of ends here as like a beat stick of all beat sticks, because you can special summon it if you don't have a monster and your opponent does, and then you can normal summon either one of these or whatever you have in your deck, and that just, you know, it adds extra pressure to the opponent. And because, again, when we're in 4,000 life point Yu-Gi-Oh!, this can be like the turning point of the game early on without giving them a chance to set up. So those both make sense, both being on the 3 of list now. Now you have to actually get creative how your combinations of cards are going to work here. And as far as Crystal Raigeki goes, for Crystal Control, they were on like 2 or 3 of this and 3 DD Warrior Lady. So now they're going to have to choose between this. It's probably going to be a 2 ratio and a 1 ratio, but then that also means that because you're playing Raigeki, you won't be able to play something like the Book of Moon or the Floodgate or the Cosmic in your deck as well, which definitely goes back into the crafting argument of why this limit section list is so interesting. Because you have to choose 3 cards among these 7 in any combination to go. Like, you could go 3 Crystal Raigeki and Crystal Beast, but then you can't play Breaker, Cyber, Floodgate, Cosmic Book, and DD Warrior Lady, and that's very limiting to your deck strategies, but also it allows for other cards in Speedles, such as something like Offerings to the Doomed, Wall of Disruption, Widespread Ruin, to see more play, because this is how it is. Now, talking real quick, real brief about the things that I think should have probably been on this list somewhere and aren't. Offerings to the Doomed is a card that, while I don't think it will definitely break the game since you just skip your draw phase, it's definitely one of those cards you play in the right deck. The problem with the card is because it's unchecked, you are just going to probably see more of this now. And this is still your jack of all trades out to almost everything. It's something that I probably wouldn't put on the limit 3 list because you already have enough options here to choose from with the limit 3s, but I'd probably throw it on the limit 2 list. Simply because in combination of, you know, how you're going to play this now, you'll probably do like 3 Book of Moon, 3 Offerings to the Doomed as a generic option, or 2 Book, 1 Warrior, 3 Book Offerings. I would actually consider looking at the list a bit differently, maybe putting Book of Moon to 2 going forward, putting this on the 3 list, just because Book is still one of the best power cards in the game. And it's unfortunately going to make everything else on this list, aside from maybe DD Warrior Lady, kind of null and void. You're going to see Book in most decks still, as you do currently. And then you're obviously going to see less of this. You're definitely going to see less Floodgate, because Book is just better Floodgate. And then, like, in combination with Book, you'll probably see a 1 or a 2 of DD Warrior Lady, maybe a Cyber Dragon here or there, maybe a Breaker, depending on the deck, and that's really it. And again, that's fine, that you know, it balances out the game a bit. But, you know, eventually you put too many cards on this limit 3 list and nothing is going to shine unless, of course, you know, you ixnay one of the big ones. And Book of Moon, like I said, it's probably the most versatile here. Should probably go on the 2 list since you'll play it in everything. And that would mean that, you know, you'd see Book and something else in here or some other combination in here. It's just, it depends how you play it. I guess you could also put Book at 1, but then, you know, then you got to kind of restructure other things a little bit too. So it's fine where we're at currently, and I think this list is fine with how it, you know, plays out. But just something to keep in mind going into the future is just where you're gonna, where do you draw the line on how many 3 of 3s you put? Like, I like this setup actually a bit better than a current limited list where it's just banned, limited, semied, and unlim. However, I think the more cards you release into the game, the harder this gets. Because a lot of cards are just going to get snuffed due to other cards being in the game and put on these lists. And while you have something like Duel Links that can regulate these lists automatically for you, it's harder to remember this in real life than it is on a video game that just tells you, oh, you can't add that because you've already hit the limit on the limit 3 section. You don't have that. You kind of have to refer back to this list more often than not. Whereas I think the limited and semied and banned options are just easier to remember. Oh, you know this is banned. Oh, you know this is limited, so you know exactly where to go from with that. Something else to mention, Metaverse came off the list. It's the only thing that was on here that came off completely. This was in the Limit 3 section, and it got removed. I don't actually know why Metaverse was ever on this list to begin with. I understand the idea that putting 3 more field spells into your deck, in addition to, you know, something like Union Hanger already, was really strong. But I don't think it warranted taking a spot on the list, and because it was on that list for a while, you just never saw it get played, considering you'd want to play one of these cards, or 3 of these combination of cards, way more than you'd ever want to see Metaverse in your deck. So it's nice to see that come back. We'll have to see where it goes with this. Something to keep in mind for the future, the reason Night Assailant, for example, is not on this list anywhere is because this errata is not on a speed duel copy of the card. However, it is legally an errata on Night Assailant over both regular Yu-Gi-Oh! And speed duels. So eventually I assume speed duels will reprint this with the errated text on it. But it is assumed in speed duels that this is how it plays, so you can't Night Assailant with Night Assailant. Something to keep in mind for the future. Now that we've limited both of the 2 most powerful burn cards in the game, where do we put Lava Golem? Do we put Lava Golem on this list in the future? Do we leave it where it is? I'd love to know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. I mean, the 1000 damage every turn is strong. It's less strong when your burn deck is obviously limited more due to this effect. But it still would be interesting to see if there's going to be more variants circled around this card now than anything else. And then something quick to note, like I said, offerings might be interesting to see on the list in the future. I think it's the only thing here that probably should have been somewhere, whether it's a 2 or a 3, and not. But creature swap, for those that don't currently play this, here's your 3 options, or your 4 options that you can now play freely. Because everything else is getting snuffed. Creature Swap is very underrated. It was an ultra rare in the last tournament pack for good reason. The card's really good. Offerings, like I said, is already like a mainstay staple in most things, even if you just played as a one-of. Yeah, you skip your draw phase, but automatic destruction on any face-up monster on the field is very strong, and it being a spell plays around cards like Jinzo. Wall of Disruption is very strong. This obviously saw a lot of play once it got released in Speed Duels. Saw less play lately, but of course also the way this list is going now, because you have less floodgates or, you know, less potential back row things. This could be a more mainstay option. It's just really strong, really blows people out. And then Widespread Ruin, of course, doesn't target destruction on the highest attack that your opponent has attacking. Also just something else. Not to say there aren't other options as well. These are just some of my thoughts. But guys, what do you think about this new list? Do you like it? Do you think they should have done more? Do you think they should have removed more? Leave your comments down below. I'd love to know your thoughts. Like I said, as far as a general update is concerned, this month is going to be all over the place. I'm currently moving, so things are going to be a little shaky for the month. That's also why the previous month and a half were a bit shaky. It was also the holidays, so there was a lot of things going on. But now going into 2023, hopefully with everything set up the way it is, I will bring you guys a lot more interesting things going forward. Obviously, we still have the next GX box that releases in the end of March to take into account, and so I will definitely be opening that for you guys and showing you all the crazy deck ideas I have going forward with that. But I'll save the rest of that for a different video. As always, comment, like, and subscribe. Click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates, and I will see you guys in the next video.